So this week's guest is a household name, at least definitely in my household. A superstar in the food world, two-time Beard Award winner, a Peabody Award winner, the star of the Food Network show that ran for 16 seasons, Good Eats, virtually every other show on that network, including Iron Chef America. Our guest on this week's episode is Alton Brown.
The following is a Tony Lasano podcast, an Opie show on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. This is the Minutia Man Celebrity Interview with Rick and Dave.
And today it's just Rick, no Dave, but it doesn't matter because we have a huge guest today. I'm not kidding when I say that you're a household name in my house, Alton. My wife.
Well, I'm honored. I hope it's not because I owe money to somebody. Or
No. As a matter of fact, my wife turned me onto your show in the late 90s when it was airing here in Chicago on WTTW. Was that your first show? Was that right at the beginning of your TV career?
And it's an interesting story because, they only got 2 episodes. When we first made Good Eats, we had absolutely no plans for how we were going to sell it because most of us that were involved in the project weren't from TV. We mostly had made commercials, TV commercials and music videos. And so we were relatively clueless. And we finally talked somebody at TTW into airing the 2 episodes that we had, the 2 pilot episodes, like 3 times a piece or something like that. And the trade was going to be that we would get, the Nielsen information, we get the ratings information for those evenings that we could then use to try to actually sell the show. And so we never really were on PBS, but we were there for just, those 2 episodes.
You're kidding. So when we saw those were like your trial balloons for the whole show?
Yes, those were the trial balloons. So trial balloon were they that those 2 episodes were actually shot on film because we didn't know anything about video. They were shot on 16 millimeter. I wish that I had the negatives, but I don't think they exist anymore.
Wow. I had no idea.
No, I had never been in front of a TV camera before. So you got the very worst of me. Hopefully I only improved from then on.
That's funny. I feel honored. I was there on the ground floor, sort of, as
you were.
As
you were absolutely ground floor.
So that led directly then to that Food Network show?
Well, I wouldn't call it direct. I mean, it was the same show. It was Good Eats, which I had created. I just couldn't get anybody to buy the thing. And for a long time, I couldn't get anybody at Food Network to watch it because they were in the business of producing all of their own content. And they had not reached the point yet where they wanted to commission programming. So by the time we actually it was an accident. This is something that I write about in my new book. And by the way, if you hear grumbling in the background, it's because my dog is wrestling with a bone. Okay. Long story short, we wouldn't have ended up on Food Network at all, except for the fact that one of their programmers happened to stumble by the Kodak Eastman website where the folks at Kodak had asked if they could put a little bit of the show up because we were using kind of a new format of 16 millimeter film. And we said, sure. Because back in those days, putting video on the internet was like a shocking new thing.
Yeah, right.
And this executive happened to wander by and saw it, called us. The next week we were in New York for meetings, and I think probably within the month we had the first season commissioned, and then it just never stopped for almost 20 years.
Amazing. Now, I found out a couple of things while I was researching you that surprised me. For instance, you're famous for incorporating science, obviously, into your shows, which is, it's kind of your calling card. So imagine my surprise when I learned that you never really liked science in school. You weren't a particularly good science student in high school or college. Is that true?
Oh, it's horrible. I barely graduated from high school. I basically had to give the principal a 20 to get him to give me a diploma. I was a horrible, horrible student. And college, I was straight A in my major, but all the sciences, I did okay in physics, which served me well later in cinematography and camera work. But no, chemistry and things, no. I didn't have it, and I didn't need it or didn't think I needed it, and so I didn't really apply myself. And then later, when I got into culinary school, I realized, oh crap, I missed I missed all this stuff that I suddenly realized that I need, because no one in culinary school could really answer the questions that I had. And the questions that I had, I can quickly learn, were mostly in chemistry, some in biology, some in physics. And luckily, I was going to a culinary school in Vermont, Montpelier, Vermont, where we had a deal with Vermont College so we could go use their library. So I would basically, do my day and then go at night and try to put myself through at least an everyman's science course.
Wow. So you're self-taught scientist.
I would say for the most part, yes, that is true. Yes.
So, that really is fascinating to me, because one of my favorite things about watching your show, first of all, you expound on the history of things and where they came from, which is always fascinating to me, especially in the food world, because nobody does that. But also your scientific food discoveries. Do you have any favorite things that you discovered while you were messing around with science?
Oh my gosh. Everything that I can cook, I owe to science. I can't do something terribly well unless I understand why it's happening. And it's only by understanding it that I can get a grip on how to make it better. So I basically, I couldn't say one thing. It's like literally everything, from scrambling an egg to aging eggnog, from eggs to eggnog, meat cookery. It's all science, and I was utterly incapable of mastering any of it until I got my head around those facts.
The Alton Brown show, the one that goes on the road, the one that is a tour. Exactly. Yeah. What do you do with those shows, and are you coming to Chicago anytime soon?
We will be playing Chicago on April 19th. At the, I don't even know how you say this, the CIBC Theater. Okay.
I don't know where that is either. But
I don't either. It's probably a theater that we all know and love. It's just called something else.
Right. It's been renamed or rebranded or
recently. Yeah. It's down on Monroe Street.
Oh, okay.
Just a few blocks from Millennium Park.
Oh, so it's one of the big theaters then. It's like
it's a Broadway. It's a Broadway house. It's a Broadway house. Maybe even the Cadillac. Only the Cadillac would have changed names. So back in, I guess this was probably early 2010. I was hanging out a fair amount with the guys from Mythbusters, if you remember that show.
Yeah, sure.
And had done a Thanksgiving episode with them. And they were doing a live tour at the time. They're like, man, you ought to do this. You ought to give this a try. And
oh, my God, those guys are just like you. I mean, they really are.
No, they're much smarter and much handier than I am, but my cooking might be superior. I don't know. But I started thinking about, what would a live show look like that somebody would actually want to see? And more specifically, which is something that I always try to do with Good Eats, what would be a show that even people that don't think they're interested in food, what would they watch? And so I came up with the idea of a culinary variety show. I was a child of the 70s and loved all the variety shows like Sonny and Cher and Carol Burnett and the Hudson Brothers, for gosh sake. So I thought, a show that has music, live music, comedy, really crazy, big scale food demonstrations, audience interaction, volunteers on stage. That could be fun. And so we did one in 2013 with very large, very strange demos. For instance, we made our version of an easy bake oven, if you remember those.
Oh,
only
wow.
This was 8 feet tall and 12 feet long and powered by 70,000 watt rock and roll lights. So our whole thing would be like, we're doing things that nobody could do. You just couldn't. This last show, I won't go into it, but, and then one of the big factors is like, I have to have live music. So I'd been a musician when I was much younger. So I thought, I got to learn how to do this again and start writing food songs, that are funny and so that I can perform on stage. Which we did. My production manager had been a drummer. On this last tour, my wife learned how to play bass, just to tour on the show. So it's a family-friendly 2-hour food spectacular with hopefully, of course, it's not comedy until somebody laughs. We'll call it storytelling. I won't call it comedy because somebody might not laugh.
My wife always says, don't say you're a comedy writer. Say you're a humor writer, because a humor that just sounds. Yeah,
I'm a humorist. I'm a food humorist.
There you go.
Which means if you smile or even chuckle, you're successful. Whereas comedians need actual laughter. I like that, and I'm going to use it. Thank your wife for that.
Sure, I absolutely will. So
yes, excited to be coming back to Chicago.
I mean, you said you do food songs. Give me a couple of titles of some of your songs that you do.
Our most famous song is a country western song called Airport Shrimp Cocktail, which is the story of what happened to me one day when I was on an airplane and got violently ill from eating a bad shrimp cocktail on the airport lounge. So it's stuff like that. We've got...
By the way, that sounds very
songs.
unlike you, eating a shrimp cocktail at the airport lounge.
Yeah. But you know what? I got a great song out of it. It's been very popular. It's our big hit. There's a song about a wife who overcooks pork chops. We had a whole CD called Bitter Like Me because I had a song about cocktails called Bitter Like Me. We even made the Billboard. We made the Billboard charts when it first came out, which is kind of fun.
I got to find that. I got to pick that copy.
Oh, you know what? I might be able to make a copy. It's on Spotify.
Okay, great.
It's online. You can easily get it.
Well, I want to talk to you about one other thing, and as long as we're in the music sphere here, I know that you and I are about the same age. You went to the University of Georgia, and at that time there was a big band there. Became very famous.
There were a few big bands.
I know, but there was one really big one.
Yes.
And I met these guys too. I got them to autograph their first EP for me when I was in college radio, which I have hanging up here in my office. But you, Mr. Brown, you not only knew REM, you were the cinematographer of a video for them, which
yes, I was
a big hit too. The One I Love. Tell us about that.
The One I Love was really kind of a breakout song for them. I did not know these guys. I was one of the only people that lived in Athens and went to school, University of Georgia in the '80s, who didn't know Michael and Peter and all of these guys. And but I had left school and had moved to Atlanta to work in the film business as a cameraman, and I caught word that they were going to have this new album come out called Document, and that it was going to be a really, really big deal. And I knew that there was a production company, two brothers, they're in this production company in Athens. And I'm like, every time they do a video, they go to these guys. It's like some kind of loyalty thing. They could go bigger, but they don't. They go to these guys because they're in town and they all live here. So I literally moved back to Athens and got a job as a cameraman and director at this little production company so that I could wait on this freaking music video to come in the door. And about 8 months after I started to work there, it did walk in the door. And the guy that was directing is a famous New York artist named Robert Longo, who directed another movie called Johnny Mnemonic, which was an early Keanu Reeves science fiction film. Anyway, and I got the cinematography job, and it was a game changer because that video did very well on MTV. It was a big deal, and so I got a lot of job offers and ended up in the commercial directing space for almost a decade before I quit and went to culinary school. So I owe REM a lot.
Yeah, quite an interesting career. I mean, you've got the.
Well, I'm not dead yet. I'm still trying to have one.
Well, I mean, you just added a new one. You're doing the book of essays now. That's a whole new career for you.
Well, you have to get old enough to have something to talk about intelligently, and I realized that I probably didn't for a long time.
So, what are the essays about? Are they food?
Well, the book is called Food for Thought. There's quite a bit on food, but not everything. And some things are food centric. I have a couple of essays about food scenes in movies. I have some deeper, thoughtful stuff about some general kind of big world food things. I have an essay about there's a fashion style, men's style essay, but they're mostly food and a lot of things that are there's a big essay about Iron Chef, talking about certain aspects of that I never discussed before, and some careers. So I would say that it's essays and memoir.
Okay. Well, I will definitely be first in line to pick that up.
I am, and I illustrated it. Just throwing that in there.
Wow, a man of many talents.
Or just not very good at a lot of things.
and
No, I'm not.
Okay, well, I trust you, but I'm very thankful that you took some time out of your very busy schedule to chat with me. Again, the book comes out in February. The tour comes through Chicago in April.
But it launches in February as well, almost like I planned it that way.
And then exactly. You might be able to pick up the book at the shows. Is that correct?
Yes, and we will be doing a separate book event in Chicago that day. So we're going to do a bookstore event, I believe, as well as the show.
And if people want to follow you and get more information, what's the best place to do that?
I'm all over the interwebs. You can certainly go to my website, altonbrown.com. I'm Alton Brown on all platforms except TikTok because I don't like it. And if you want to know more about the tour, altonbrownlive.com, which is the best place to go for tickets because everybody else is a scalper.
That's so true. Well, thank you very much for being on the show and wish you the best. And
thanks for having me on.
And I'm definitely going to bring my wife. We're going to come to the show.
Well, you know what? Let's talk afterwards. I'm sure we can work something out, but not your partner because he's just got a hangover.
Yeah,
and that's why he didn't show up. So he doesn't get to come.
Him. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. You're really good at this. Do you need a partner? I don't even think you really need one. I would use today as the jumping off point for your solo career because he's clearly got something else to do. So. Yeah.
That's an excellent point. Thank you very much. Thanks for being on the show.
Your wife would back me up.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
We'll talk soon.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye-bye. Bye. There he is, Alton Brown. I enjoyed talking to him. He's a good guy. We have people to thank for this show. We need to thank. We're not going to thank Dave because he didn't even show up. Right? Am I right? But we should also thank our executive producer, Tony Lasana, with Opie Shows. Opie is hippo backwards. We also have to thank Ed Silla from the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. Great Talk Radio isn't dead. It just moved to a better place. And that's RadioMisfits.com. And we'll be back again soon. I think I'll let Dave back in. And we'll do another episode soon of Minutia Men Celebrity Interview.
The proceeding was a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. Find our other great shows on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and at RadioMisfits.com. Thank you.
This has been a presentation of Opie Productions.
Tony, can you shut up?